Okay, my outstanding friends, I hope we can help a lot of people, and that's what Marguerite O'Reilly is trying to do with her initiative in Ireland to address autism. Her son was severely autistic. We did a little of this and a little of that, intervened to try to get his digestive system working correctly, and that made a big change in his life and her life, because he was about to be put in a locked ward. It was so bad, he never spoke, he was nonverbal, he was, really not doing well at all, and he was becoming violent. And he was, I think, about 9 years old at this time, and they didn't hold up any hope for him. And the first words I said to her was, "How is his poop?" And she said, "Oh, all the kids have that. All the autistic kids have the same thing. They all have a problem with their digestive system." And I said, "No, the digestive system is what causes the autism. If they're not digesting their food right and they're not making the correct bacteria and enzymes in there to go out and create the chemistry to protect their nerves and so forth, they're going to be invaded, and they're going to have all kinds of problems. And this is what's causing it. Basically, is that you don't have the chemistry in your body. There's no question whatsoever. It's a chemical problem. What causes chemistry? Here's what causes chemistry. Enzymes. Now, bacteria create the enzymes. I'm going to show you this in 1 second. And they occur naturally in everything. All living things. They have the enzymes which are created by bacteria. Bacteria produce the enzymes. All right? Enzymes differ from bacteria in that they are chemical in nature, not living organisms. The bacteria make the enzymes, which are the chemistry that makes your body work. So where did we start from? Bacteria. All right, here is the key. Listen carefully. Bacteria are living cells. They live inside of your body. What does that mean? That means you can kill them. And what kills them? Antibacteria. Antibiotics. That's what kills them, number one. Number two is environmental issues. Toxins come in and they can kill you. Inhaling things, eating things that attack your good bacteria. It's all about the bacteria being in a good condition, in a good environment, and living and recreating themselves. They're living cells. They die and they reproduce all continuously. Now, if you get back antibiotics and they flush your system and kill all the good bacteria in there, you may not be able to repopulate it. You know what I have discovered, I believe, is what repopulates your gut when you get this kind of bacterial destruction? Your appendix. It hangs right off of your digestive system. And because it just hangs there like a bag. They always thought didn't have any use. That's where all that extra bacteria lays in there, and it's just waiting to be used if all the other stuff dies for whatever reason. It goes in there and repopulates, I believe. And again, some of this is new research. It needs to be looked into carefully. And one of the other things that is new research is the interstitium. Now, let me explain something to you about Marguerite and about myself. As I said, I can't even remember how we stumbled upon each other, but I believe I was looking for somebody to research to find out what we could do about autism. And somehow we clicked. And like I said, the first thing I said to her, "How is his poop?" And right away, the first thing out of her mouth, "Oh, all these autistic kids have the same problem." I said, "No, it's not because it's because the poop is causing the autism." I said, "Let's work on straightening out his poop." And I said, the first thing you're going to have to do is get some good bacteria in him, because that's what makes the poop turn into nice stool. So she did, and she got this powdered probiotic that her son would not. Well, first of all, she tried to give him pills. I guess this is what happened. This goes back, and my memory's not that good. But I believe originally she tried to give him the pills. He rejected it. He wouldn't take them. Nope, nope, nope. No way in the world was she going to get him to take those pills. So Marguerite is a pretty tricky chick. She got powdered probiotics and put it in ice cream, and he slurped it right down. Everything was fine. Now, it didn't take long. It really doesn't take long at all to make an inroad into this. And this was the start, where it started to make his poop come around a little bit. And then she introduced some other chemistry. Now, Marguerite went to Harvard for I believe it was mostly the microbiome, basically, and ribosomes and that sort of stuff. Now, I went to Johns Hopkins for genomics, and this is my general background, is all that stuff. So between the two of us, we kept working it out until we were looking at different chemicals. Sulfur primarily is one, and there's a bunch of different little things. That's all on Marguerite's table now. That's not for me to say how to treat anybody or do anything. I don't do that. I do the research. Now, she is going to be recommending ways for you to help your family and people that do have autism. And even if you don't have autism, if you have any problem whatsoever, if you have any, like they say, pre-existing conditions, that means your gut isn't working right. And I can almost guarantee you got some problem with pooping. If you're not pooping correctly, you got an issue. You need some form of refurbishment, re-up your biology in your colon and so forth. I am going to show you precisely what all this stuff consists of in the body and why you need to do these things. You don't have to, it's just for your general knowledge. But the most important thing that you can take away from this right now is that bacteria is probiotics. Those pro means they're good for you, biotics means they're bacteria. There's antibiotics, means they kill bacteria. And if you get something in you which is a bacteria that wants to attack your bacteria, then you better have good bacteria to fight against that invader like COVID or something like that. Now, how does that stuff get inside your body? Because I'm going to show you there's a layer that keeps you protected. It can get in through something called the junctions of the membranes. You have to move like this all the time. These membranes are going back and forth in your body. You're twisting, you're shaking, you're rubbing. And there's a glue in between. It's called leucine-rich proteins. They're slime. And it coats, it's like mucus. That means you could float around, but everything stays sealed. Once you crack like this, in comes something through that membrane. Now, you better be able to fight back. And if you can't fight back, you're invaded. That's what's called a pre-existing condition. You're just waiting to be invaded when you open up that crack, and you have nothing to fight back. And this is all done by bacteria. All done by bacteria and enzymes. And enzymes are bacteria are the factories. See, better said, bacteria are the factories. They're the factories that produce the enzymes. The enzymes are the chemicals. You don't have the chemicals, you're done. That means you don't have the bacteria, you won't get the enzymes. If you don't have the enzymes, you don't get the chemicals. That's when you are in trouble. And that's what we need to do, is make sure that their bacteria and their gut is working correctly. And the only way you will know if that is working is if the poop comes out correctly. If the poop comes out correctly, you're in good shape. You're going to be okay. And you will see a significant change in everything. And I'm not talking about just autism. I'm talking about mood. I'm talking about health in general, how you react to life. You need all of this chemistry to be working correctly in you. Autism is one of the most severe situations because usually they get it when they're very young, and it does alter the genetic codes. That's the problem. As you get older, if you get they give you antibiotics and you get sick and you take probiotics, your genetics are not altered. But when they're very, very young, their genes are actually are building their intelligence and everything else. Now, there's going to be some genetic damage. You're not going to be able to fix that. If you've got a very severely autistic person, it's very unlikely that you can get right down to the beginning where the genetic programs are. But you're still going to be able to very, very greatly, create a better life for that person, because it'll bring them around in a lot of cases. Almost, it appears it may even come back to very close to normal. John again was in a very, very bad situation, and he came around pretty good, is my understanding. And Marguerite has been very, very good about taking care of him, about making sure that she follows the plan, and she'll give you the plan, she'll show you everything, and stick with her. She is the one that you want to follow. I do the research, I'm going to keep my eye on things. I want to understand, what are we doing? Is it working? Is it helping? Because, like I say, I just like research. I don't want any money for it. I don't want anything like that. It's not anything to do with that. It's just to understand the things that have been missed. And a lot of this has been missed in medical industry because they're so scared of being sued. Because if anything goes wrong for any reason whatsoever, or even if somebody thinks something went wrong, you're in court. They'd much rather stay with the status quo. Just do what they said. Everybody else does the same thing. They can't sue you. If you're doing what that guy does and everybody else is doing the same, they can't sue you. But if you go over here and everybody else is over here, you're in court. So now, Marguerite is going to be showing you things that you're going to have to do on your own. This is not something your doctor will probably do. But again, I make no medical recommendations whatsoever. All I am showing is the research, and I'll show you why I believe these kids are being invaded and what you can do to correct these poop situations, because this is chemistry. That's me. I'm a chemist. I'm a biologist, anatomist. I understand this stuff pretty close, pretty good. I've been doing it a long time, and it's been a very passionate thing for me. And it's just one of those things that I do. But having Marguerite or having other people that are so dedicated to this, and she was to her son, and I was very, very impressed. We went to Harvard to understand this. So that's not somebody that's taking this lightly. So you better pay attention to what she's telling you. And I am going to show you the best I can how your body system works and all the systems work. But the early stage of the digestive system in the kids is just beginning to develop. They're very, very vulnerable up until they get they can work with solid foods really well. And then they have a good poop system going on. Then they're absorbing, they're going to be fine. That should be the trip off to you that your kid is going to be pretty good. But if you see got all kind of digestive issues, you are in trouble right there. I guarantee you got an issue. And until you get your poop right, everything else is up in the air. Why are you not digesting correctly? Why do you have all this runny feces or bound up and it won't? You got some issue with bacteria. That's just an absolute guarantee, because your gut does all of that. So I know I'm really pushing this hard, but trust me, this is it. Enzymes are only created by bacteria. And bacteria lives in a certain part of your body, which is primarily your digestive system. And you're eating things all the time that are going through there, and some of them are toxic. And if they kill your bacteria, you're in trouble. And if they give you antibiotics, and then somehow you don't replenish your probiotics, you're in real trouble. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then they break through the membranes. You can't get rid of the toxins in your body. You can't absorb the foods correctly. All kinds of issues crop up. And then you just live a miserable life. And then, just like everybody else, sooner or later it's over. Okay, like I said, I am a researcher, so this is what I do. Now, this is what we're talking about here that is the thing that you can't kill or you will die. This is a bacteria. It's a single cell, one single cell. They have what they call a flagellum, most of them, and they spin up to 100,000 RPMs. That thing can scoot through your body like a rocket ship. Inside of it, it carries a program. All right, you see this ribosomes? This is what Marguerite went to Harvard for, I believe, to pretty much study how this RNA and the DNA and all that stuff, the programming basically of the bacteria that creates the enzymes. All right, now I went to Johns Hopkins, and it was for genomics, which is the sequencing, and I'll show you. It's really not that complicated. It really isn't. It sounds like it, but trust me, it is not complicated at all. So we see what a bacteria is, and like I say, that thing comes out and squirts out an enzyme. And what's an enzyme? Well, here's an enzyme. All right, it comes out, that bacteria, and right out of that bacteria, it squirts out a whole series of beads like this. It just, and I mean talking thousands of them. And then when it gets done squirting them out, it just goes, and they end up being something really elegant like that. And it will be exactly that every single time. Not one single molecule will be different. And here's what it looks like when it's done. And the complexity is so phenomenal. You see that? That's what you got. That came out as one big long loop. And it went. Now, what does this mean? It's an enzyme, but what does that mean? Big deal, it's an enzyme. Well, it means there's a plus over here, 2 minuses over here, 3 pluses over here, a minus here, 2 minuses here, 6 of them over here in a row, and 2 of them this way, and 24 of them that way. And it's that complicated magnetically. It's just like this magnetic situation. What does that mean? It means that there's a signature here. There's a magnetic signature. And what does that mean? That means when it finds somebody it wants to attack, it goes click, just like that, magnetically, and destroys all of the other molecules that it attacked. One single molecule, one of these, just like this, comes up to a bacteria, and it might have 100,000 bacteria in a glob there coming to invade you. 100,000 to one. Bam! All of them dead. Just like that. Instantly, because of what it does is magnetically, it comes in and it goes snap with the magnet, and it goes blip. Every one of them snaps like this, one of them. And that's it, they're done. They can't work anymore. That's the bacteria that was invading you. This case is closed. And so you just send another guy around, another bacteria, will put an enzyme out there and break this down into all little bitty pieces, and they'll all go down to be recycled. That's how your body works. You got a killer, and then you got one that goes down and cleans up. And both of those have to work. And they're both different enzymes. They're both different bacteria that makes those enzymes. I hope this is making sense, because it really is very simple. If you don't have that chemistry, which is an enzyme, which is created by a bacteria, you cannot create the products for your body to work. You cannot fight off your invaders. You can't create all the little proteins that float around your body that surround your nerves and everything. Your nerves might be shorting out because the sheathing, the cause is not there, because there's not an enzyme there to make that particular type of fat or whatever it is. And then once you start eating the right bacteria and getting the right bacteria in your gut, almost instantly, and they say with these fecal matter transplants, which is a whole new gut biome, which means you get somebody else's bacteria completely replacing your bacteria, and then within 24 hours, you're in good shape pretty much. You know, I'm not talking about autism. That's a different story. I told you that creates a genetic signature, I believe, and that is still up in the air as well. But I don't think you can really recover 100% from the genetic damage. Again, still up in the air. And then there's a spectrum. You know that. There's some that are down here a little bit, and there's one over here. That's it. And that's how John was. Marguerite told me that he was off the spectrum. He was just, they wouldn't even take him in for some clinical trials that they had put out a word for. She said, I want my son to be in it. I said, no, we can't take him. He's too far off the spectrum. He's messed all up. And now he's actually doing pretty well as well. That's my understanding. Now, I'll let Marguerite explain to you, and I hope she'll put it in her procedural documents to explain her experiences. Because I've talked to a lot of people since then. I've been years doing this. And I just had a guy a couple days ago. He said to me, you know, after I taken the probiotics, I'm fine, my gut is fine. He said, I for years was going to the doctor and I had a black stool. Black as, and it had all kind of problems with his gut apparently. And the doctor said he had some problem with iron and it's going to be like that for the rest of his life. There's nothing he can do. So he goes back and tells the doctor, he says, you know what, I started taking probiotics and I'm good. And this is what he said. This is what he said. He says, well, we manage symptoms. He just healed his whole body. But the doctor says, we manage symptoms. If you come to me with a symptom, I deal with the symptom. Basically, they don't want you to get 100% fixed. That's a job destroyer. But I'll tell you, your life can be very, very difficult. And I guess Marguerite's was not a bowl of cherries, working with her son, but she stuck with him and did everything she could, and then she was at wit's end. And thank God it turned around for her, because, I've never had to deal with these issues, so I have no way to empathize other than to say I'd like to help if I can by doing the research. Again, I'm not going to tell you to take anything or do anything. That's Marguerite's plan. She's got a program. If you follow her program, I think you'll find that you'll get some positive results. I don't know how positive, but that's what we're trying to build as a database of what works and what didn't work. If you take some extra silica or you take some extra sulfur or maybe a little magnesium, whatever, somebody's going to say something. Well, I gave my son this and this worked. Or my daughter was doing this and I gave her that and that seemed to help. And then you start to build on that. Say, does anybody else say that? Is it obvious? Because right now that research is not being done correctly. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not being done correctly. They're doing a couple little clips here and a couple clips here. Let me show you something about fecal matter transplant, which is nothing more than these bacteria. That's all it is taking somebody else's bacteria and putting in another person's body. How it helps autism. Hold on a second. All right, this is just amazing. I hadn't seen this article, but this is very recent. Now, John Jr., I believe he was 8 or 9 when we started. I think he was maybe 9. And he was still nonverbal. And they claim that after 8 years old, if they're nonverbal, they're just never going to speak. Apparently, that's what they told her. But listen to this. Autism, more than hope, nonverbal, 19-year-old, says mama after fecal matter transplant shows corrected microbiome. This is stunning. Now, this is just from the end of last year, 2022, October. A Ventura-based genetic sequencing research lab published a case study analyzing the gut microbiome 6 months after fecal microbiota transplant in an adolescent with autism and motor dysphagia using a familial donor. Somebody in the family just gave him some poop. The study was presented at the American College of Gastroenterology's annual scientific meeting postgraduate course on Sunday, October 2022. Now, this is a new gut microbiome after 19 years says his first words. Here's another one, Science Daily. Autism symptoms reduced nearly 50% 2 years after a fecal transplant. All right, new study, researchers demonstrate long-term beneficial effects for children diagnosed with ASD through a revolutionary fecal transplant technique, which is the new microbiota. But you can get a lot of those same effects with probiotics. You can get a lot, but not perfect. And again, once the autism has genetically altered the gene sequence, you're not going to ever probably get 100% just like a normal, set of genetics. It's probably not going to be able to reset to that. So don't think that's. But it depends. Again, it depends on where you are on the spectrum. Nobody's ever expected this to have this much of a benefit. And they're still not pushing this, and it's there's almost no side effects from these microbiota transplants. What you want to do, and I was working with some people. Well, Marguerite knows Andy, and he's Andy Marino. He's a triple PhD and runs bacteriological labs. And we were talking to some people in Mexico because they don't have the same restrictions as we do in the United States. You can't have a fecal matter transplant in the United States. They won't let it. And even if you have what's called C. diff, C. difficile is a bacterial infection in your gut that people just die from. There's almost nothing they can do for you once it gets out of control. And they give you a medicine. And they say, let's see if this will fix it. Well, a lot of times it doesn't. You just keep getting worse and worse. And then they say, well, if the medicine doesn't help, well, then you can have a fecal matter transplant. And guess what the effectiveness of it is at the time when you're just about ready to die. They finally allow you to have it. And guess how much effect? It's like 80 to 90% effective. They get perfectly clean again, and they're all set to go. Why can't you have it before you have to take the drugs? That's my question. See, this is where I went, but it had nothing to do with fecal transplant. But I went to Johns Hopkins for genomics. But this is it. The procedure can control an infection called C. diff by adding healthy bacteria into the recipient's intestines. Fecal matter transplant. They know how well this works. And it's against the law to have one. You cannot have one unless you suffer from C. diff and you don't react to the medicine. Then they will allow you to be healed. I'm not kidding you. You see this? This is National Library of Medicine. This goes back to 2012. Still have the same rules. C. diff, as infection rates are climbing in frequency and severity. That's because people's guts are being destroyed. And the spectrum of susceptible patients is expanding beyond the traditional scope of hospitalizations. Fecal transplants is becoming increasingly accepted as effective and safe intervention in patients with this reoccurrence disease. It keeps coming back because you don't have the bacteria. Likely due to the restoration of a disrupted microbiome. Listen to this, cure rates of over 90%, consistently reported from multiple centers. They knew this, over 90%. This goes back almost 10 years ago, and it's still against the law to have one of these until you can't tolerate their drugs anymore. This is a tragedy, a real tragedy. And there's everything in your body is controlled by these bacteria that they're putting in to control the C. diff. Well, it also controls every other disease that you can have. Because the only thing that does any chemistry in you whatsoever is an enzyme. And that's because it works hundreds of thousands of times faster than the natural biology would happen. You have to have those enzymes or you will die. And it depends on which ones you don't have as to what kind of illness you have. And once they start slamming you with a whole batch of different antibiotics to treat multiple infections, which happened to my friend. He had Lyme disease. And they couldn't get rid of it. And they kept giving him different antibiotics. And finally they said, there's nothing we can do. You're having what's called a cytokine storm, and you better get your affairs in order because there's nothing we can do and you're going to die. Literally, they told him he would die. He ended up taking these probiotics, and within 2 weeks, and I'm not kidding you, within 2 weeks, he was completely healed. All right? They would send him home to die. And he started taking the probiotics. Now, I don't know who gave them to him in the first place or how he realized to do that. But he did it, and he lived, and he's very healthy, handsome. You know, he's vital. No more problems. So, and you can see right here, cure rates of over 90%. You can't get a transplant unless you have C. diff and you have not responded to the drugs. That just doesn't seem right. They're safe and effective. Safe, effective, and safe. 10 years ago they knew this. I think I showed you this. Ideal, your stool should be somewhere between firm and soft. Well-formed log. Wasn't too hard to squeeze out. Probably the right consistency. That's what you need. And when you see that you got all kind of problems in your gut and it's pains and diarrhea, abdominal cramps, all that, that means you're just not working with your bacteria correctly. Otherwise, the bacteria do the job. If they're not there, you're in trouble. All right, I think we went over what a normal poop is supposed to be like. It's soft, not too firm, like a log-looking thing, and brownish, and and it should be able to come out of you fairly reasonably. You don't have to really exert a whole lot of stuff. And it basically is a normal poop. Not diarrhea, not constipation, not pellets, not all that. And all of that stuff happens. Now, here's the deal. And if you get that under control, if you get the kid's digestive system or your digestive system under a very good regular frequency, and I use, for myself, I'm just telling you what I do. I take Metamucil, which is a fiber. But you need a lot of fiber in your body for the probiotics, for the good bacteria to live on and thrive on, because they eat plant material, basically. Anyway, kids don't have a digestive system. Digestive system of a newborn is unlike an adult. The fetal digestive system does not have a digestive function from birth. The stomach and intestines are reduced, while the liver, with its hemopatic functions, is proportionally much more developed. So the liver is just gigantic compared to what it would be at the end. No, these are all the different little bits and pieces of the digestive system. I have some other things to show you. Hold on. Now you see this? I think I mentioned to you about the interstitium. And this, again, just goes back to 2018. This is brand new. This is a new organ. They didn't realize that it existed, or excuse me. They knew there was some fluid-filled things going on here, but they had no clue about the complexity. And here is the complexity. See that layer right there? That is your white blood cell immune system right there. Remember I showed you that line on the other one? This is the fluid-filled highway. These things are supposed to squirt out chemistry into there that keeps any invaders from getting through here into your vital flesh. And again, they just realize this, so don't think this is, your doctor's going to know much about this. They really don't know much about it at all yet, because they still don't understand about this, well, let me show you how they don't understand. All right, there it is, autism spectrum disorder, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, more than their peers. Okay, I don't think I've shown you this yet. What we're looking at is the digestive system. These are the different fabrics and layers that do different jobs in your body. This is the esophagus area here. Now you see you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all these different layers, and 6. That's these things here, the mucosa, the epithelium, the submucosa, the muscular tunica, but they all have a function. Now, this, the second one here is your stomach, which is a little different. The third one down is your small intestine, all those little tabs sticking up there. And I'll show you some other shots of this. But you see all of the tissue layers there? You have to have bacteria in every single one of those layers, and then you have to have a ton of it in your digestive, where it has to be breaking down the food right here, and you also have it in your rectum too. All right, your rectum, your colon, your small intestine, your stomach. Stomach not so much, but it probably does. Esophagus, I'm sure you're loaded with bacteria. All of those things. They all play a part in how you digest your food. So that's the most important thing to take away. And here's the way, again, this may be making it a little more obvious. You see this here? This is your intestines. This is a small intestine epithelium. All of those little tabs, you see them over here? Small intestine epithelium. All of that has to be protected. And there's a little lymph glands in here and there that take out the garbage, because there's going to be garbage collected in there you don't want. And anyway, your system gives you good stuff and it takes out the bad stuff. And either way, you're in trouble. If the bacteria are there, they're supposed to make the good stuff, break all the stuff down so that you can get that good stuff. If that enzymes aren't there because that bacteria is dead, you're in trouble. If the ones that are supposed to take out the trash in the lymph nodes and all that stuff in your lymph system, if they're not there to break down the products to make them suitable to be taken away and deposited in the urine and the feces and all the other stuff to be just discarded out of your body, sweat and everything, all of that stuff is in your lymph system. And there are lymph nodes all over your body, and primarily they're clustered around heavy blood flows. And they extract all of the garbage that's collected in you. And the lymph cancer is very deadly, and it is breakthrough cancer, which I showed you before. This is what lymph cancer is all about. It just breaks through and invades you. And you have to be able to fight back against these. And there's also been shown that lymph cancer is benefited by fecal matter transplants. It's all in the gut. It's all in the gut. Here's another one. This is a fecal microbiota transplant in people with advanced melanoma. That's very, very deadly. Collectively, their findings show that fecal matter transplant and their anti-program death drug changed the gut microbiome. That's the key. It changed the gut microbiome and reprogrammed the tumor microenvironment. Just means it reprogrammed where the tumor was. They say it reprogrammed it. It's created enzymes to overcome the resistance to the anti-PD-1 in a subset of PD-1 advanced melanomas. Now, these people were really serious. Advanced melanomas means you're about ready to die. And it says they benefited 6 of 15 patients and induced rapid and durable microbiota perturbation. Now, 6 out of 15 that are just on the death's doorstep, that's not too bad. And that's just from a microbiota transplant. Now, all the people that they've just been given a lot of antibiotics to, I'm hoping they're taking probiotics after they've been, had COVID and stuff. Or this long COVID, what I have found is that the long COVID appears to be related to some type of a bacterial problem. Now, are all of these people that have long COVID have gut disease, gut problems, issues? I'd like to know. If you have long COVID, if you feel or even COVID, and you have long COVID, has your gut given you trouble? That would be very interesting to find out. This is a lot of research, and this should be a good place to find out. Please respond. If you have something viable to respond with, to say, you know, I did notice my gut went bad, I was having all kind of trouble when I got COVID, and I still have that trouble, and then we can see about probiotics, how they help or not. They're over the counter. There's no regulation against those. I'm not recommending them to cure anything. I'm just saying that your gut needs probiotics. And if you've damaged them, well, you got to fix them somehow. And the first place to understand this is this a fact? Do people that have had these diseases or these issues have stomach issues? And the same thing if you have any disease whatsoever. And, you know, pre-existing conditions. Are you a person that has lingering bowel issues? That's what would signal to me a pre-existing condition. You don't have the capability to fight back. Basically, that's it. All right, so that's the most important thing you could possibly take away from this discussion.